Hi. This is on the topic of fears, and it's not so much about the fears that we have in life, although to some extent it has a relationship to that. Hi, I'm Wildy Chia, and thank you for watching this. I thought this is an interesting topic for some students out there. You notice that in this video I didn't have my face recorded, in the video, right? So I thought that it might be more useful if my presentations are have some PowerPoints and some written content. Okay, hi once again, the topic of fears. I think it's an interesting topic to discuss about. Also in light of the recent experience I had with some students, and it made it very meaningful to share those thoughts. Right. So thank you for watching. Let's start. Fears. Now, as a student, we have fears of all sorts. What kind of fears? We fear getting something wrong, and we hope that, for instance, um, that we wouldn't get it wrong in the exams, and hopefully, we don't get something wrong, and then we end up getting penalized in perhaps in terms of our semester grades or in terms of our tests. Right? Another fear that we have, as students, is whether we have gotten the concept correct. Right? How often have you had the experience that you went to class and then but the concept taught to you was not clear enough and you're like left wondering if you're on the right track, or otherwise could you have been uh, you know could you have misunderstood the concept that was taught, and we start questioning if we should have done something in one way or another. Right? Haven't you had that feeling? And I think it's perfectly normal to feel that way because uh, as a student, when you come across new concepts, and what happens to you, you'll find that looks strange, it looks unusual, that seems counterintuitive. Now I'm going to tell you that it's absolutely normal to feel that way. Why? Because if you haven't felt unusual or felt any sense of difficulty, then you probably are not learning, right? And that sounds very strange, but you know what? The thing about learning is that concepts are, never all equally difficult. You're bound to see some concepts that are a bit more difficult and some others that are less difficult. Well, you know what? Some are easy, you get over it easily. Some are difficult, you find some hurdles getting over it. Like myself, I teach the topic of audit for the ACCA, under the ACCA program. And often I find that there are concepts that look a bit unusual and not so intuitive to explain. Um, and I shall not mention those terms, but well, it's not abnormal because there are constantly new topics, new concepts that we come in contact with, and it is surely not a part of the process of learning that we'll come across a few that are somewhat so difficult and counterintuitive to understand, right? In fact, it would be absolutely abnormal that you didn't feel any sense of fear. It would be extremely abnormal. Like myself, I taught some of the most unusual topics in my life, right? I felt almost abnormal if I didn't have any sense of fear whether I have understood a concept correctly. After all, being the tutor and the trainer, I have an added level of stress and added level of responsibility that I need to get concepts correct and delivered correctly. So I do feel the same sense of fear, right? But should that be an impediment? Well, I don't think so, right? Thankfully, in this day and age, there is this thing called Google.com, and there is Wikipedia, and there are lots of online resources. It's not necessarily the end that you come across something that's so difficult and you feel that you should give it up. No, that isn't the case, because today, if you do see something so unusual, so difficult, you can always do a Google, and you surely will be able to find some answer somehow, you know. And really, I don't think there is any fear that we should allow to impede us from doing things that we need to do. Like for example, an assignment. Yeah, the assignment might have difficulties, but uh, is there an instruction on the assignment that says you can't complete the assignment? No, there isn't. In fact, all assignments contain certain levels of difficulty, but those difficulties are not meant to stop you or discourage you from completion. Honest fact is that difficulties are there so that you challenge yourself, you get to realize what you couldn't do, and that's where you get to learn. After all, what's the point of learning if everything is so easy? Right? There's nothing to learn at all. So, you know what? I came across a lot of students that would tell me that, oh, I find it difficult, I find this difficult, I find that difficult, help, help, help. and that's really nothing unusual or uncommon, right? Now, the next thing I'd like to share with everyone is, what happens after fear. Many of us, maybe myself included to some extent, right, or for many students I come across, when they find something so difficult, they'll first jump to conclusion to say that, hey, I have no idea, I really do not know what to do next, can you tell me what to do next? I really can't do this, help, help, help. And you know what? This is so common among many students. Now, I always tell students that, when you come across something difficult, what should your first response be? Understand what is that problem first. Think of yourself being an owner of a business. You're posed with a problem. What do? Do you stop running a business and say that, oh, I have a problem that I can't solve, let's quit? No, you don't. You have to think of, like, what gave rise to the problem, what is the cause of the problem, understand what are the facts, right, and what's the most appropriate resolution, right? Now, in accounting and finance, we learn this thing called decision tree, and what we do is that we plot that decision tree and understand what are the outcomes, and it's not just jumping in the conclusion to say that, by the first two of the question, say that, sorry, I can't do it, I really can't do it. And that is really quite, that is really not encouraged, because if you had to let yourself be beaten by a question at first glance, that doesn't show very well. Problems are there, remember, not to stop you, but to let yourself question what are the areas that you're lacking in, that lets you improve on, right? I mean, learning is an evolutionary process, and it helps us to learn a bit more about ourselves, right? And to learn like where our capabilities, where our capabilities are and what's lacking, so you get to improve. So, if I can give an advice to all students out there, whatever subject you might be doing, or whatever subject that you might be studying at the moment, don't worry about the problem. Understand what is the problem and try to overcome, right? Now, you know what? Without problems, the thing is that you derive no value from that learning process. It is that difficulty that's involved that gives value to what you're learning, right? Seriously, that's how it works. Otherwise, why would you think that it's so satisfying to learn something so complex? Okay, I don't refer to any subject in particular, but it applies to many other subjects. Like today, one of the things I enjoy doing most is that I like to read books, because reading books give me ideas about how to solve problems. Right? After all, you have to remember most problems in the world are not new, and that if we face a problem today, these problems will probably have been experienced by someone else in the past. So the best way to learn about how to solve problems is read a book, or read some books at least. And I think that's very lacking in today's youngsters. Right? Reading is never really quite a habit among many, at least uh, among those youths that I come across. Okay, so don't jump to conclusion. Then what do? Right? Fears unfounded. Now, you know what? That day I had a student that came to me, and she was like, jumping over, complaining that that problem sounds very difficult, looks incredibly difficult, I can't do it. Now, you know what? I have to tell something. I told the student, have a close look at the question. Highlight the keywords. Ask yourself if you understand those keywords. Then think back about the whole problem. I look at the problem as a whole from the helicopter view. and focus on the keywords. You start to realize that once you dissect the keywords and you look at the problem as a whole, it becomes different, right? Now, when you dissect problems and highlight the key facts, you start to narrow down the areas of difficulty. It becomes a lot more intuitive to solve, right? And you'll be very surprised that solving problem is actually a process of self-discovery. When you examine a problem the first time, you might find that, oh, that's not easy. Look at it again, you find that maybe it's not that difficult. I can tell you honestly, um, in many of the exam questions I said, I'm an exam paper setter for some of the courses, and I mean, to be able to set an exam paper, I need to learn the problem, I need to understand the problem, I need to understand the concept so I can set the question, right? And I'll readily admit that sometimes I come across questions where they look strange, right? But when I start to examine the problem, I try to understand the thinking behind it. I realize, hey, actually, it's not that difficult a problem, right? And it makes it easy for me to replicate the same concept, how it's being tested in different forms, and that is a process of self-discovery. Who taught me? No one did. I just learned it myself, right? You have to remember, the ability to self-learn is important because that enables us to acquire other knowledge, whether be it related knowledge or whether these are knowledge in some other fields, right? Think out of fear and feeling of anxiety, show the lack of knowledge. It shows that you're trying to overcome, right? But then without that knowledge, you couldn't solve that particular problem or some, right? And it's the same in work life, exactly the same. Now, when I was serving as a financial controller and early on as a finance manager, I often come across things that I couldn't solve, and I lack the knowledge, right? But what I did was to ask myself, what am I trying to solve, right? Now, knowing what I need to solve tells me what's the missing knowledge, where is the knowledge gap, right? Like for example, if I can quote you an example, like say for instance, to prepare a consolidated financial statement, right? I knew that I wasn't too sure about how to prepare the spreadsheet, so what I did was that I prepared asked myself what's consolidation about, and then what are the missing information I need, which is essentially the financial statements and probably what are the relevant elimination entries, what elimination entries do I need. Now the same goes for building, I mean, learning the Duotron Man. I mean, if you saw my videos, I also have learned how to ride the Duotron Man, which is actually a uh, two-wheel vehicle, electric vehicle. Um, and that was very difficult to ride. And I asked myself, how do I learn that? Simply put, I look at what's my objective. My objective is to learn how to ride the Duotron Man. And I realized that my problem in riding that is that I'm not able to balance the vehicle while in motion. So then what I did was that then I focused on learning how to balance the vehicle. It works like that, right? It is the lack of knowledge that creates difficulty, and difficulty means that we are trying, right? It means that mentally we are trying. Now I can tell you that when I learned how to ride the Duotron Man, uh, the whole process took about roughly 4 weeks before I got complete mastery of how to ride the vehicle. And today I'm very comfortable riding the Duotron Man, up down the slope, anywhere, right? I brake with a lot of confidence. I have no problems riding it at speeds. So back to the point. So the act of fear and feeling anxiety is just the result of the lack of knowledge, contributing to that feeling of difficulty, not being able to solve a problem, not able to overcome a problem. But you know what? When you try to put together the known facts, the problem becomes somewhat solvable. Like, for instance, in my channel, I feature accounting and finance topics. Like for example, I'm not sure how to put together a consolidated financial statement. But when you put together the facts like I need to have financial statement of company A, financial statement of company B, and that what are the elimination entries. Oh well, I kind of know how to put together consolidation, and then I look at the last, see how it's done. Oh well, the problem becomes somewhat solvable, or at least it seems somewhat, uh, solvable. to some extent, right? Okay, so to quote the early example of the Duotron man, right, I realized that my balancing was poor, so what I did was that I focused on balancing rather than riding the Duotron man. I focused very much on balancing as best as I could. It took about 4 weeks. But you know what, when you have an objective in mind, it makes problem solving far more precise, far more scientific, far more organized, and systematic. Now, why do problems seem so difficult and worrying to address? Because, and what I realize is that for many people, they don't see the objective. You must have an idea what the objective is, and then that's where you realize what are the knowledge gaps. And these are the knowledge gaps that you need to rectify in order to be able to solve that, problem and achieve that whatever objective. So being able to solve that knowledge gap enables you to fulfill the objective, and meeting of that objective means that you solve the problem. Right, it goes like that. It's very simple. Let me repeat again. Identify what's the objective, then identify what is the knowledge gap, and try to rectify the knowledge gap, the issue of the knowledge gap, and you solve the objective. And when you solve the objective, you solve the problem, right? When the problem becomes complex, what you do is that you divide the problem into multiple objectives, and you solve each objective one at a time. Right? That's how it works, right? Like for example, last time when I used to run a bakery, and many students know that I used to run a bakery, right? Years ago, I had no idea how to bake, I mean as in bake things like cheesecake, and when you bake cheesecakes, what's a common problem? The cheesecake tend to develop crack lines. So and then cheesecakes are very difficult to cut because they're sticky on the knife, and it's very difficult to have a clean cut. So and what do I do? Those are problems. What I did was that thankfully there was Google. Just Google the keyword how to cut the cheesecake. Problem solved. Just get a hot knife, and it's very easy. And what about minimizing crack lines or avoiding crack lines on the cheesecake? Simple. Then don't bake the cake for too long. Really just bake for a sufficient amount of time, and that's that. So in many problems that we face is really to identify, okay, what's the problem, and see how could we cut up, the problem into, smaller or less difficult objectives, bite-sized objectives, so these objectives can be readily overcome. And then look at, what's the knowledge gap in achieving these objectives, if there are any knowledge gaps, right? Fulfill those knowledge gaps, and you get to solve those problems. I mean, you get to solve and achieve those objectives, and solving all objectives enables you to solve the problem. Now it works like that. It's a very systematic and very methodical process. So, and I mean, when I saw the student not long ago telling me that she couldn't solve the problem because it was very difficult. But when I asked her to look at the question, and look at it carefully, I asked her certain questions, certain very relevant questions. She started to be able to solve the question part by part, and it was quite amazing. She managed to solve the whole question on her own, I mean, just by me asking a few questions. So that's the thing about learning. And really, the takeaway today is that if something that you're learning is so easy, then what's the value in it? It has no value. Now, the reason why it has to be difficult is because learning without difficulty gives you no value. I mean, it gives very little value to your knowledge base, right? And I mean, after all, if something is so easy to acquire, then what makes you different from the rest, right? Now, what gives knowledge great value is that it's so difficult to acquire, and so not so easy to obtain without cost. That makes it so valuable, right? Like today, I realized that one of my most important skills is it's not just delivering knowledge. I felt that it's being able to self-learn and acquire new knowledge. And one day, a colleague asked, "How on earth did you do that? How do you know that you could do this? That you could test the student using this certain instrument?" So I told them that I thought about what my problem is. My problem is that I have too many students, I can't tell who on earth is attempting the question. So what I do is that I made it into a quiz, and an online based quiz. So it's very simple. Because it's online based, so students are all made to attempt it. And if they don't attempt, I'll know how many didn't attempt, and I'll know that how many of them are sleeping in class. So I mean, if we actively think about the problems and how to solve them, that's how it become good. Now I have to tell you also that an absence of problem doesn't mean that you are good. An absence of problems means that you're not thinking enough. You know, absence of problems may also mean that you're not perceptive enough to realize that problems are present, right? So that's for me today, and uh, I hope that you understand why fears are important, why difficulties are important, and they are really there for a reason. Don't ignore them. Don't treat these as impediments. They are there for a good reason, to make you learn, to make you realize the value of whatever that you're learning. And thank you for watching. I am Rodi Chia, and I appreciate your time spent to watch my video today. Have a great day. Thank you.